Hello everyone, welcome to the Life Sketches channel. I'm Claire. I'm a 32 years old married woman with white skin, long dark hair, full lips, and very attractive. Today I'm going to tell you the biggest secret of my life. It's not easy for me to share it, because what happened to me left me trapped between guilt and passion. It all started that night. It was a stormy night, I was alone, and I didn't know that nothing would ever be the same when there was a knock on my door. A stranger came to my house asking for help. What happened that night forced me to make a choice. I could remain faithful to my husband, or I could follow my passion and risk my whole life. So what would you do? Would you give in to your own desires? Or would you leave everything behind and do the right thing? Don't forget to share your thoughts with me in the comments while listening to this story. That night I was sitting in the living room in front of the fireplace, wearing a black satin nightgown and underwear that made me feel alluring. I had covered my body from head to toe with detox oils. My skin was glowing like a baby. I was sitting by the fireplace with a glass of red wine in my hand and beautiful music coming from a record player. I had filled the house with candles. I had made the atmosphere of the house very romantic for myself that night. This loneliness was affecting me more than ever. My husband Mark had gone to another city on business. I was getting tired of these frequent trips. Mark hardly ever took the time to make me feel my womanhood. Fortunately, there was a strange restlessness in me that night. The storm was pounding on the windows and the air was eerily quiet. Just when everything seemed calm, there was a knock at the door. I was startled. Who could it be? I slowly walked to the door, and when I opened it, I saw a stranger in the rain. His name was Alex. His leather jacket was soaked with water, and he was looking at me with a slight smile on his face. "My car is stuck," he said. His voice was low and sincere. "My phone doesn't work. Can you help me?" I hesitated for a moment. Normally I don't open the door to strangers, but this man was somehow reassuring. "Sure," I said, inviting him in. There was a very romantic atmosphere in the house at that moment, and I was really getting ready to make myself happy. I was in a moment of lust, and there was a desperate man in front of me. "Sit comfortably," I said. When Alex took off his wet jacket, the t-shirt underneath stuck to his body. He was dark, tall, with colored eyes, a very attractive man. I tried to avert my eyes from him, but I was also studying him. I handed him a towel. "Dry yourself and warm up," I said. He sat down by the fireplace. The drops of water running down her body made me feel like I was watching a Greek statue. He never took his eyes off me for a moment. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was soft but deep. His eyes seemed to touch my soul. "Are you here alone?" he asked. I hesitated for a moment but answered immediately. "My husband is traveling on business." My voice was more shaky than usual. The silence between us grew heavier and heavier. The flames of the fireplace and the candles were the only source of light in the house. The light on Alex's face gave him an almost magical quality. "Claire," he said. The way he said my name surprised me. "I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to bother you, but I was desperate. Ever since I knocked on your door and saw you, I couldn't think of anything else." My eyes locked on his. His words had triggered something inside me. On top of the lustful feelings of the situation I was in, there was a man like a stone in front of me. And he was saying words that would melt me. When was the last time I heard such words? When had I felt like this? I couldn't even remember. "It's not true," I said, but even my voice didn't believe me. Alex took a step closer. His breath hit my face. "If your husband were here, I would never do this," he said. "But he's not here." I should have stopped then, but I couldn't. Alex grabbed me around the waist and pulled me to him. He pressed his lips to mine. "No, it shouldn't have happened. I shouldn't have done it." It was wrong, but I didn't want to stop. I was tingling inside. When his lips met mine, my brain completely shut down. The heat from the fireplace increased the tension in the room. I lost myself completely. Every fiber of my being was filled with happiness. It was a very exciting moment, and this man was really good at his job. He knew how to make a woman happy. Even with Mark, I had never been with him on such a different level. During the night, I forgot everything. Mark, my loyalty, my life. There was only Alex, only the wonderful pleasures Alex gave me. In the morning, Alex was gone. I was shocked. I looked around. Was it all a dream? I found a note on the table. "Claire, I'll never forget this night. Being with a woman as unique as you is not something to forget. But it has to end here. I must never see you again, because you're married. Alex." My heart broke as I read the note. I didn't know what I was feeling, regret, or the desire to relive that night. Every fiber of my being longed for Alex. But when the doorbell rang again, I gasped. When I opened the door, this time Mark was there. Mark stood in the doorway. His eyes shifted to the wine glasses, and a shadow of suspicion spread across his face. "Was someone here?" he asked. I was out of breath. I had to think quickly. "Oh, our neighbor Anna stopped by," I said. "A few things weren't working in the storm. She asked for help. She was very short." Mark's brow furrowed. "Well, why were 2 glasses full? Anna doesn't drink alcohol." At that moment, the blood rushed to my head. "Oh, well, you're right," I said with a nervous laugh. "I had one for myself, then I filled the second one for her, but she didn't drink." Mark studied me in silence for a while. His eyes roamed over me, as if trying to decipher my lie. "Okay," he finally said, but his tone was unconvincing. When Mark went back to work, the uneasiness inside me hadn't gone away. As the days passed, his gaze became more questioning. I was afraid that he knew something, but part of my fear was that Alex would never come back. One night as I was washing the dishes in the kitchen, I noticed movement behind the glass. At first I thought it was an animal brought in by the storm, but then there was a knock at the door. My heart started to race. I opened the door and saw Alex. "Claire," he said, his voice low. "I wanted to leave, but I can't forget you." I was shocked. "You can't come here," I said. "Mark isn't here, but there's a risk that someone might see you." Alex put his hand lightly on my shoulder. "Just a few minutes," he said. "Then I'll go, but I know I shouldn't see you again. But I can't stand it." I let him in. In the firelight, his face looked more uncertain than ever. "It's wrong, Alex," I said. "But every time I think about you, I can't stop myself." "I think about you too, Claire," he said. "But was I just an escape for you, or was that night real?" I couldn't answer because when I thought about that night, I couldn't tell what was right and what was wrong. But before I could think anymore, I heard the sound of the door opening. Mark had come home early. He found us facing each other in the living room. The anger in his eyes said more than words. "Claire, what does this mean?" Mark asked. The doubt in his voice had now turned to outright anger. Mark took a step towards Alex. "What are you doing here, man? What are you doing with my wife?" he asked. The anger in his voice had risen. "I just came to thank you for my car. Claire helped me and I wanted to express my gratitude," Alex said, keeping his cool. But there was a challenge in his expression. Mark recognized it. "My car?" Mark laughed sarcastically. "Claire, did you really think you could take that? Does someone with a broken car sit so comfortably?" He stared at me. We were now at the point of no return. "Mark, don't take this the way you think," I said. My voice was shaking, but I felt I had to defend myself. Alex just wanted help, that's all. But my words didn't appease Mark. "Tell me the truth, Claire. What's going on here?" he yelled. At that moment, I felt completely cornered. My eyes shifted to Alex. The look on his face was expecting something from me, but Mark's gaze made me think about the life he and I had built over the years. Mark's anger filled me with guilt, but part of me dreamed of turning to Alex and putting it all behind me. "Mark, I have to explain this to you," I started, but then the doorbell rang. All 3 of us were startled. My heart raced as I turned to the door to see who it was. It was a colleague of Mark's who was traveling with him on business. He had come with documents for Mark. This unexpected visit momentarily diffused the tension between us. But when Mark looked at me one last time, I could see that the anger still lingered on his face. "This isn't over," he said. "We'll talk about it later." As Mark left the room and started talking on the phone, Alex came to me. "Claire," he said in a low voice, "I can't stay here. I don't want to leave you in this situation any longer, but I want you to know, if you want, I can get you out of this life." At that moment I gasped. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Mark doesn't believe you. Things won't be the same in this house anymore. But if you come with me, we can make a new start, just you and me. I don't care about anything else." His words frightened and excited me at the same time. I was confused by what Alex was saying. Should I really leave everything behind and go with him? Or would that be the wrong decision? When Mark finished his phone call and came back, Alex was still with me. There was a tension between the 2 of them that I hadn't seen before. "Claire, you have to decide if you want to go," Mark said. His words felt like an ultimatum. Without taking a step back, Alex said, "You don't have to make up your mind right now, Claire, but you should know that I will always wait for you." This was getting on Mark's last nerve. "Claire, don't believe anything he says," shouted Mark. "This man only wants to deceive you. If you follow him, you will lose everything." At that moment, my eyes filled with tears. I was about to make the hardest decision of my life, caught between Alex's determined gaze and Mark's angry but desperate face. What if it was you? Would you choose loyalty, or would you choose to start a new chapter in your life? Was it possible for your life to change completely in such a moment? Don't forget to share your thoughts with me in the comments. Subscribe to our channel for more stories.